My grandfather didn't need to raise his voice when he revealed the one truth everyone at the table had worked for years to keep away from me. He simply placed his fork beside his plate, opened his laptop, and asked, "Ellen, did you ever receive the email about your trust fund?" The first 10 seconds were a blur of startled movements, sharp intakes of breath, and a stillness so heavy it felt staged. My mother stiffened. My sister stared into her mashed potatoes. And something inside me tilted, as if gravity had suddenly changed, because I didn't even know I had a trust fund. And what my grandfather was about to show me wouldn't just rearrange the end of a holiday meal. It would rewrite my entire understanding of my life. My name is Ellen Hale. And for most of my life, I believed being quiet made things easier for everyone. When you grow up in a place where your sister's accomplishments are paraded like decorations and your own needs barely register as background noise, you learn to shrink. You learn to tread lightly, to take up less room, to survive by believing your silence keeps the peace. My mother used to murmur, "Don't complicate things, Ellen," in the same tone other moms used to say goodnight. I swallowed that message whole. 4 years. So when the word trust fund floated across my grandfather's table, it felt like someone had reached into my childhood and snapped every memory down the middle. A trust fund? For me. It made no sense. I grew up counting quarters, patching the elbows of second-hand sweaters, picking up weekend shifts at the grocery store. I asked my mom once if there was anything put aside for college. She gave me her tired smile and said, "We're doing what we can. Money's been tight." But money was never tight. Not when it came to my sister. Marissa got ballet lessons, summer programs in other states, a car on her 17th birthday. And I accepted it back then. She was the golden one, the chosen one, the one tradition demanded we center everything around. I convinced myself I simply didn't need as much. Grandpa Arthur was the only one who ever made me feel like a whole person. He remembered the books I loved. He asked about the classes I taught at the college. He showed up for my graduation even when my parents claimed the drive was too long. But even he had never said a word about a trust fund. Not once. So when he asked that question at the table, I didn't feel surprised. I felt humiliated. The kind of humiliation that coils behind your ribs and whispers that maybe you're the only fool in the room. My mother's expression didn't help. She didn't look at me. She shot a sharp look at Grandpa, a warning wrapped in panic, as if she could stop him before he exposed anything else. My father pretended to keep eating, slicing his turkey even though his fork barely moved. My sister lifted her glass and held it there, frozen. Every motion around me felt prepared, practiced, expected, as if they all already knew exactly what this was about. And maybe they did. Because before the laptop even faced me, the truth hit hard. Someone in this room had been managing something that belonged to me. Someone had been making decisions about my future behind closed doors. Someone had been rewriting the shape of my life while I was busy trying not to cause trouble. And if I was right, this wasn't a misunderstanding. It was a decade of silence built on one decision someone hoped I'd never question. Grandpa didn't rush. His hands moved slowly as he turned the laptop toward me, giving everyone at the table the chance to stop him if they dared. Not a single person tried. The glow from the screen spread across the plates, the candles, the tightening lines around my mother's eyes. I leaned forward. My pulse hammered between my ears. Rows of emails sharpened into view. The subject lines repeated themselves like a drumbeat. Annual Trust Report. Beneficiary Confirmation. Account Update. 10 years of messages. 10 years of notices. 10 years of information that should have gone directly to me, but none of them ever had. For a split second, I hoped there was some other explanation. A wrong address. Another person with my name. A mix-up from the bank. Something, anything, that could make this innocent. My mother whispered, "That has to be a mistake," as if she were the one blindsided. But then I clicked on the sender's contact information. And every fragile excuse shattered. The email wasn't mine. It never had been. It was a version of my mother's, one she used for financial paperwork. One I recognized from bills she always handled alone. A cold weight dropped into my stomach. Why would everything be going to your email? I asked, not accusing, just trying to steady my voice as the ground of my life cracked open. My mother didn't flinch. I have no idea, Ellen. Banks mess things up all the time. But Grandpa kept his eyes on her. Not mistakes like this, he said quietly. Color climbed up her neck. My father shifted like he wanted to jump in, but his mouth stayed closed. Marissa watched them both, her eyes darting between their faces, unsure whether to be terrified or worried about how this might affect her. I opened the earliest message. 10 years back. I knew that year. It was when I asked if we had anything saved for my tuition because my scholarship didn't cover everything. My mom smiled apologetically and said, "We're stretched thin right now, sweetheart." But apparently, we hadn't been stretched thin at all. Not where I was concerned. I opened the next year. Then the next. Every email aligned perfectly with a moment when I had needed help and been told to figure it out alone. Nights I skipped dinner so I could cover bills. Mornings I walked to class in storms because my car had died. Summers the first worked double shifts while Marissa traveled for programs my parents never hesitated to fund. Each memory hardened under the bluish glow of the screen. Grandpa finally spoke again, steady as stone. "Ellen, this was yours. It has always been yours. And someone made sure you never saw any of it." The table felt tighter. The room heavier. My mother's stare burned into me, equal parts threat and desperation. I closed the laptop, not to end the moment, but to keep from exploding. Because now I knew. This wasn't an accident. This was deliberate. Someone had taken control of my life and reshaped it in their image. And 10 years of silence sat warm beneath my palms. 10 years of being told to be patient, to be sensible, to lower my expectations. And the whole time, the support I begged for had existed under my name, hidden right where I was never meant to look. My chest tightened as memories flooded back, sharp and humiliating. The day my card got declined at the campus bookstore freshman year, and I laughed it off like I had forgotten to move money around. The winter I picked up every extra shift I could so I wouldn't fall behind on rent while Marissa uploaded photos from a week-long dance retreat my parents had paid for. The afternoons I locked myself inside a bathroom stall at work because I didn't know how I was going to afford another round of textbooks. And every time I asked Mom if anything was saved up for emergencies, she'd smile like she pitied me. "Life is expensive, Ellen. We just have to manage." No. She had made sure I had to manage. Across the table, my mother straightened her shoulders, trying to take back control. "Let's not jump to dramatic conclusions," she said, as if this entire discovery were nothing more than me being emotional again. "Ellen doesn't understand the complexity of financial matters. These things aren't simple." The words cut deeper than I expected. I had heard that tone my entire life. Dismissive, patronizing, the way someone talks to a child who's wandered somewhere she shouldn't be. But Grandpa wasn't letting her hide behind that script. "Elaine," he said slowly, "explain why her contact information was replaced with yours." Her eyes jerked toward my father, a silent cue for him to rescue her. He shifted uncomfortably but stayed silent. She tried again, softer this time. "I handled the paperwork for the household. If anything needed updating, I must have done it by accident." A mistake. 410 uninterrupted years, statement after statement, update after update, each one routed neatly into her inbox instead of mine. Someone else might have believed her. But not me. Not anymore. I pushed my chair back and stood. The scrape of wood against the floor sliced through the tension. "If it was an accident," I said quietly, "why was I the only person in this family who didn't know I had a trust fund? Why did I struggle while Marissa?" "Do not pull your sister into this," Mom snapped, her voice cracking for the first time. Marissa seemed to shrink, her eyes wide with shock. I kept my voice steady. "I'm not dragging her anywhere. I'm asking why someone made sure I never saw what belonged to me." For the first time that night, My mother didn't have a ready answer. Her jaw trembled. Her fingers twisted the napkin in her lap until the fabric wrinkled. Grandpa leaned forward. "Ellen deserves honesty," he said. "And she deserves the right to manage her own assets." Control. A word no one had ever associated with me before. I breathed out slowly. "This stops tonight," I said, my voice steady and certain. No shouting, no tears. Something inside me had shifted. Something grounded, unbreakable. I wasn't the quiet one anymore. I wasn't the one who stepped aside to keep the peace. And this time, I wasn't backing down. Grandpa was the one who finally ended the stalemate. He pushed his chair back and stood, moving with the stiffness of age but carrying a weight that filled the room. He looked around the table, studying each face as though taking stock of who could still be trusted. Then, with a calm that unsettled everyone, he said, "We're not ending this dinner until we get answers." Mom stiffened. Dad shifted in his seat. Marissa swallowed hard. Grandpa gestured toward the living room. "Let's go. All of us." We moved together, a tense, silent procession, from the dining room to his study. The light in there was soft and warm, but the air felt cold. Something about the rows of certificates, the leather-bound books, the family crest on the wall. It made excuses impossible. This room wasn't built for lies. Grandpa placed the laptop on his desk. "Sit." None of us argued. I stood behind the chair he pulled out for me, resting my hands on the backrest, steadying myself. Mom and Dad sat side by side, her posture rigid, his shoulders tight. Marissa lingered near the doorway, as if hoping she could fade out of the room. Grandpa opened the email archive again. The screen's blue glow stretched shadows across the shelves. "Here," he said, clicking open an email from a decade earlier, the year I turned 17. "This is when the contact details were changed." The screen displayed the edit. My original email crossed out, replaced by another. My mother's. A clean, deliberate substitution. Time-stamped. Logged. Proven. Mom's breath caught. "That could be anything," she said quickly. "Sometimes systems update automatically." "They don't," Grandpa said firmly. "Not without the guardian or account holder requesting it." I turned to my father. "Did you request it?" He shook his head. He didn't even look at her. "No." "So, who did?" I asked quietly, already knowing. No one answered. Grandpa clicked again, opening the confirmation email that followed the update. A message thanking the user for verifying the new contact information. It wasn't vague. It wasn't unclear. It was tied to an IP address from our home in Seattle. My mother's voice cracked. I was just trying to keep things organized. I stared at her, the woman who taught me to say thank you for every small thing, who told me life was easier if I didn't expect much. "Organized," I repeated. "Mom, you left me working double shifts while money in my name sat untouched." She recoiled like I'd slapped her. "You were too young to understand responsibility. I didn't want you relying on money you didn't earn." I let out a small, humorless laugh. But Marissa could. Marissa flinched. "I didn't know it was yours, Ellen. I swear." Mom said don't. Mom snapped at her. "Don't say another word." But the damage was done. Grandpa leaned back in his chair. "Elaine, you kept a financial asset from its owner. That's not organization. That's control." My mother's voice sharpened. "I did what I had to do for the family, for stability. Ellen never needed much, and Marissa needed everything." I asked, "Is that it?" She pressed her lips together. Dad finally spoke, voice low. "Elaine, we should have told her. We should have." My mother's head snapped toward him. "Richard, not now." But Grandpa didn't let her dodge it. "You lied," he said. "To me. To Ellen. For a decade." My mother's jaw trembled. Please, you don't understand." "I understand enough." He clicked another email. This one was a trust fund notification from 3 years ago, the year I was juggling rent, classes, and a campus job just to afford basic groceries. I remembered crying in the privacy of my tiny apartment, thinking I had failed at adulthood before I even began. The email subject mocked me now. Annual allocation update. Money that could have changed everything. Money I was never allowed to know existed. "Mom," I said softly. "Why?" She closed her eyes. A tear fell, one singular, fragile, but her voice was still defensive. "Because you wouldn't have made good decisions. You were always sensitive, easily overwhelmed. I needed to protect you from wasting it." My breath caught. "Protect me?" "Yes," she insisted. "And if you'd known about the trust, you would have gone off on your own too fast. You would have left us." The truth settled heavy between us. She didn't hide the money because I was irresponsible. She hid it because she was afraid I'd grow up without her permission. "That wasn't your decision to make," I whispered. My mother shook her head, refusing the truth, even as it stood in front of her undeniable. "Everything I did was for this family." Grandpa's voice tightened. "Then why did you only do it to Ellen? Why didn't you redirect Marissa's trust fund emails?" The question punched a hole straight through every excuse she had built. She had no answer. The room was silent except for Grandpa's steady breathing. Then he turned to me. "Ellen, you should have access to everything now. Full control. If you want, I can call the bank representative tonight." I nodded. "Yes. I want that." Mom's head snapped up. "You can't just." "I can," Grandpa said. "And I will." She looked at me, eyes wide, voice cracking. "Ellen, please. We can handle this privately." "No," I said. "For once this doesn't get handled in the dark." My mother stood abruptly, but her knees wobbled. She reached out to the desk for support. "You don't understand what this means. If you take control, everything we built." I kept my voice quiet, steady. "Mom, you didn't build it. You borrowed it from me." The words struck deeper than shouting ever could. She sank back into her chair. Grandpa placed a hand on my shoulder. "You're doing the right thing." For the first time I felt it too. Not triumph, not revenge. Just clarity. A truth that finally belonged to me. I looked at the laptop, at the decade of stolen decisions, and I knew this was the moment my life split into before and after. Whatever came next, I wasn't going back. The bank representative called back within the hour, confirming the transfer of all access and notifications to me. Hearing my own name, my actual email listed as the rightful contact, felt strangely unreal. Like stepping into a life I should have lived years ago. Grandpa squeezed my hand, proud but quiet, letting the moment be mine. My mother stayed seated, shoulders curled inward, not arguing anymore. My father finally met my eyes, guilt softening something that had been rigid for years. Marissa whispered a small apology as she passed me on her way out. Later, in the calm after everyone left, I sat alone in Grandpa's study, scrolling through the newly restored notifications. 10 years of what-ifs, 10 years of choices stolen. But now, finally, I had control. Of the fund. Of my future. Of the story they tried to write without me. I walked out of Grandpa's house with nothing but a coat and a decade's worth of clarity. For the first time, my future belonged to me, not the people who feared I'd claim it. If this story hit something in you, share your experience below and subscribe for the next chapter.